Hi guys, welcome back to Story of the World Chapter Highlights. I'm Sophie teacher and today we're going to be talking about Chapter 7 of the Story of the World 4 books. Now we have two very different parts of the chapter today, okay, so let's get started on discussing it. So at the very start of our chapter today, okay, we talk about France. Now we've studied France in earlier studies before, but one important thing to take away from this chapter and discuss is that France had a really big issue with deciding how they wanted to be governed. It was something it talked about at the very start of the chapter. Okay, so as we know, for a very long time, France was ruled by a monarchy. Normally a king, there could be a queen by his side as well. Now, what we've learned before is that France wasn't happy with the monarchy. The monarchy was kind of known to be very luxurious and spend lots of money. And if we remember from previous study that one of the kings, Louis, actually built Versailles, which is one of the most extravagant palaces in the world, okay? So the French got really upset, okay? They were really upset with the monarchy. And if you can remember, they ended up actually killing the king. They revolted against him and they killed the king and they killed the queen, who was Marie Antoinette. And yeah, they were like, we want to be a republic, okay? We want to be like America. We want to be a republic and have more freedom. So that's what they decided to do. They decided to have a republic, okay? But the issue with the republic in France was that you might recognize this guy here, okay? The problem was that a governor called Napoleon decided he wanted to be in charge. And if you remember, after not too long, Napoleon declared himself Emperor of France. So France was kind of back into that same situation again. Then, as we learned, Napoleon was overruled. And again, France was back into this situation. They didn't know what they wanted. They didn't know what to do. After Napoleon, they went back to a monarchy. They were like, maybe let's have a monarchy again. But again, the monarchs got back into the same kind of tendencies, okay? They started to do the same things again, spend too much money, be too luxurious. So the same thing happened again, okay? So the French rose up and they were like, no more monarchy, okay? So what they decided to do, they started to talk about something called a constitutional monarchy. So if you notice, we have just monarchy up here with king and queen, but here, constitutional monarchy. Now, a constitutional monarchy is when the king or queen still has power, but there's a very good quote in the book that says they will rule but not govern. So they can be the rulers of the land, but they don't govern. They're not allowed to make laws. They can't make those kind of major decisions. They're just there to rule. So they decided to do that. They decided to try a constitutional monarchy. Unfortunately, people from the revolution, okay, the revolutionaries, weren't happy. Okay, they really weren't happy with this. They were like, it's just going to happen again. There's going to be a monarchy. They're going to spend too much money. It's going to be really bad. So they revolted again. They were like, we're not doing this again, okay? They were like, I think the best idea is to be a republic. And they decided, they were like, okay, in our republic, a president will have 4 years, so they'll be in power for 4 years. They'll be voted in, okay, and there will be an assembly. Okay, so if you remember, the word assembly means when there's people who help vote on the laws. So it's not just one person making all the decisions. So this is what they decided to do. Like, okay, let's vote in a president. Unfortunately, there was a slight twist of fate, okay? And the person who ended up being voted in to that presidency was a Napoleon. Okay, he was a Bonaparte. He's actually the nephew of the Napoleon we knew to be emperor. Now, it started off a little well with the new Napoleon. Things were going well. But unfortunately, people didn't listen to him. His assembly didn't listen to him. And he couldn't really pass any laws or do anything. So he basically just did what his uncle did again. And he declared himself emperor. And he became Napoleon III, which obviously upset the French again. They were upset after what had happened before. So yeah, if we look down here, so there was the First Republic. So the Republic, when we're talking about the Republic, we're talking about having a president. The First Republic was the first Napoleon, okay? But then he became emperor. Second Republic also was a Napoleon and became emperor again. Now, after the second Napoleon, so Napoleon III, he was called, after he decided to be the emperor again, people weren't happy. And the French revolted once more time, okay, one more time. And they decided we really need a strong republic and president. And that's what they did. And they came into the Third Republic. And since then, France has been a republic. So it has stayed like that. So right now, France has a president and they have a prime minister who is voted in by the people. Okay? All right, hope that helped a little bit. So let's move on to the second part of chapter 7, okay? So this time it moved more over to Germany. So let's have a look at this. So if you remember from the chapter, it talks about what we know now as modern day Germany, but at that time it was lots of different states. So Prussian states. So there was Prussia, there was lots of other places, okay? And they were all ruled by different princes. You might remember this from earlier study, okay? Now, at this time, Prussia was a very strong state. It was a very large area too, if you look at the maps in your book, okay? So what happened was, we have the king here, Wilhelm. Wilhelm had a man called Otto von Bismarck. Otto von Bismarck was a general, and he had really big plans for Prussia. His dream was, he said, okay, I want a confederation. Now, we've heard this before, if you remember, from studying about America. That is when different areas vote together and they have one person in charge. So Otto wanted to make Germany a confederacy. He wanted Germany to be one country, so all the states to come together. He wanted there to be a Prussian king and a Prussian army. Okay, since he believed Prussia is the strongest state, so we should have the most power. Now, Otto was known for being a very strong leader, so they ended up calling him the Iron Chancellor. So he was very strong. Chancellor is very similar to just the meaning of Prime Minister. So Prime Minister is normally the second in charge. So you might have a president in a country and a Prime Minister second. Or in the United Kingdom, there's a king and a prime minister. There's no president. So Otto had really big plans. So once he was made the chancellor, he decided, okay, I'm going to team up with Austria, okay, who was another German state, and we're going to attack Denmark. So that's exactly what they did. They went after Denmark, they had a war, but Prussia then turned its back on Austria. They were like, we don't want any competition for being the strongest German state. So that's what they did. After that, Otto ended up defeating Napoleon III, who we just learned about, okay, if you remember. He was the second Napoleon, the Second Republic, okay? So Otto ended up defeating Napoleon III as well. So as they did this, Prussia started taking more land. They took some land from Denmark, they took some land from France. Then what he decided to do was he wanted to declare Wilhelm to be emperor. Some of the German states weren't very happy about having an emperor. They'd seen what happened in France, they'd seen other countries, and they didn't like the idea of someone having absolute power when they still wanted their princes. They still wanted to keep their areas, okay? So basically, they kind of started to think, Wilhelm thinks of himself as the Holy Roman Emperor, or he wants to be the Holy Roman Emperor, okay? So what happened was they started referring to Prussia as the Second Reich, okay? Or Reich. There's two ways you can kind of say that word, okay? The Holy Roman Empire was the First Reich, okay? So calling Prussia the Second Reich was saying, it was kind of hinting that people were starting to, or at least the government and Otto was starting to think Wilhelm was kind of the next in line for being the Holy Roman Emperor, okay? Now, Prussia was known to love war, okay? They really loved war, but other states in Germany didn't love war that much. They were quite happy with studying arts and science. Eventually, it came around that Wilhelm here died, and next in line was Friedrich, but Friedrich didn't live that long. And eventually, Wilhelm II became the leader of Germany, or Prussia at that time. Now, Wilhelm saw he was thinking, Otto has a lot of power here, and he wasn't very happy about that. So he actually sent Otto away, and Otto lived the rest of his life out of Prussia. And that was the end of the Iron Chancellor. Okay, everyone, I think that's it for chapter 7 today. See you next time.